Commander-in-Chief orders the sinking of a drug vessel.
Anaharibu watoto wetu kwa mambo haya.
This is a clear message to the barons.
We are dealing with now the drug barons.
On a risky endeavor, I, Obar Mark, will take you in Kenya's homemade and illegal trending drug sweatshops.
If it's when it comes to cocaine, it comes down to the same process.
They also buy protection and they use technology to communicate.
In this hour, we will take you inside the invisible drug traffickers. Every single moment in our world, more people join the chronic use of drugs for a reason other than which it was intended. Drug abuse has no single cause, and it destroys millions of people worldwide. According to the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, heroin injections have doubled in Kenya in the past 12 years.
There is what we call the psychological set, that I'm looking for this. I want to feel nice. I want to have confidence to do 1, 2, 3 things. And that is what the drug is going to give you. And actually the one that is very good at doing that is bangi. We call it a focused drug.
The problem that started back in 1980s at the Kenyan shores is now growing faster than the effort to contain it. Now, the Criminal Investigations Department and the Kenya Anti-Narcotics Unit established that the coastal towns of Kenya and Tanzania are actually the best conduits for drug trafficking in the East African region. In fact, in the year 2001, the investigators arrested a total of 4,260 suspects who were charged with drug trafficking in this region. But to everyone's shock, most of the people who were arrested were Kenyans. This simply means that drug problem is a major issue in Kenya than any of the East African nations. Since then, drug trafficking problem has been a major crisis in this country. With more clandestine approaches, drug traffickers are some of the most powerful people in Kenya and in the entire world.
We are dealing with now the drug barons. You will see, maybe in the next, before a week ends, you will see the big names rolling. If you follow the history of drugs, it is closely related to that ivory, the sale of ivory. It is also closely related to the anti-Al-Shabaab.
Coastal Kenya is under threat. Drug cartels are operating the so-called invisible companies with long-standing functions to create the East African entry points for heroin and cocaine. In a move geared towards sending a message to drug cartels, in September this year, President Uhuru Kenyatta ordered the sinking of a drug vessel to show his government's commitment to the war against drug trafficking. Heroin bags were put together for destruction, but was it a success or just an incurable failure? The ship, Christine Danur, was sunk at a zone known as Delta 16, which is designated for the disposal of explosives within the Kenyan territorial waters. 24th of April this year at around 4 a.m. A heroin haul estimated to be worth 25 billion Kenyan shillings was seized by the Australian Navy off the Kenyan coast. So far, this is the biggest haul ever found in Africa. 483 kilometers away from the Kenyan coast, Nairobi City looks peaceful with just patchy reports on drug trafficking. But is it?
That means we are going to use electronics, we are going to use sniffer dogs, we are going to use any system available.
In this feature documentary, we will examine the role of Nairobi City in drug trafficking and unveil the market trade that is driven by some of the most influential and most dangerous cartels of all times. To understand how this lucrative business is carried out, I need to talk to one inside the cartel. Clearly, this is not going to be easy, but some of them are well known to investigators. At the Kenyan Anti-Narcotics Unit, the officers here are on constant drug encounter readiness. They are planning a major raid to arrest drug cartels in Kenyan cities.
Judah has broken every chain, has given us power. Hallelujah, day by day. Hallelujah, day by day.
I'm meeting people who are undergoing rehabilitation from drug and alcohol abuse at Youth for Christ Rehabilitation Center. In the remote parts of Ngong area, these young and old people have a horrific tale, and the common denominator here is drug and alcohol abuse and trafficking.
I started drinking when I was in campus. I was in Egerton University. I used to do a lot of drinking. It was curiosity.
Nilikuwa pesa zote ninamaliza kwa pombe, nikirudi nyumbani sina hata chochote, na hapo ilibidi mke wangu aweze kunitoroka.
So it begins from feeling nice. It goes on to becoming habitual, and finally people become dependent on the drug, either physically or psychologically. Psychologically, if without the drug I can't think straight, without the drug I cannot reason well.
This will help me to understand the scourge of drug abuse and trafficking to any nation. The founder Duncan Muya was once a serious drug addict and trafficker in the United States of America.
For me, when I went, it was an opportunity to explore the bad things that the US had to offer. And so the bad things, I even now graduated from the marijuana, I got into now the heroin, I got into cocaine and crystal meth. Well, the street name was speed, and I mean, every drug that was available, I used it, you know. And it was very unfortunate. My mom and my dad, being Kenyan parents in the US, became very confusing for them.
Findings from a national survey on alcohol and drug abuse conducted by NACADA in 2012 shows that at least 13.3% of Kenyans are currently using alcohol, 9.1% uses tobacco, 1% uses bang, and 0.1% uses heroin. This year alone, drug and alcohol abuse has killed more than 100 people in the country. We are leaving Youth for Christ Rehabilitation Center. We are out to meet a third-class drug trafficker. Today, drug traffickers have classified themselves in three major divisions. The first class, who are the financiers with international market connections. The second class that forms national coordination teams with greater links to drug sources. And the third class, they are simply the foot soldiers.
It's not bad to smoke bang. It's only that Kenyans feel that bangi ni kitu ingine serious sana. Kwa hivyo si kitu baya. Sio kitu mbaya. Sasa bangi kama hii ukiniambia ni 1 million na nimebeba for 10 years.
Ami Kenya nafanyaga kitu ya kwanza huwa si disclose kwenye ati ni utoa, lakini sources zimo Nairobi pia, lakini siwezi disclose a certain area. Gava, wacha tuseme Kenya yetu nika kila mtu ni corrupt. Akisha kushika nayo unamjenga kitu kiasi, alafu maisha inaendelea.
This young man has nothing much to offer. He's just a small-scale drug trafficker. If I must get all the information I need, I will have to look further. But part of his information is a blessing to my quest. This time round, in drug underworld, we are going on a dangerous journey in Kenya's homemade and illegal drug sweatshops. This is the world few people get to see, and it's closer than you may think. Wherever you are, your neighbor could be cooking some drug in their kitchen. In this journey, we will take you through the price and promise of drug trafficking. Through my connections, I've been lining this for several months, and Nairobi's Central Business District is our starting point. To the bottom, we begin to find out if the risk is worth the reward. It's a calculated gamble. These drug dealers give no journalist a chance. The only reason they have given me an access is because they are in control. Drug dealers rent houses, but they stay in them just for a short time. This is a factory of crack business, where the powder cocaine is cooked into crack and bang is baked into cakes, while heroin is converted into liquid, something similar to your tea. So what are you really making?
So I'm gonna show you how hash brownies or hash cookies are made. Measure my sugar here kidogo tu. I'll start by mixing the blue band with sugar. If it's when it comes to cocaine and heroin, it comes down to the same process. Let's say you can decide to do it at a party. Maybe you're hosting a few friends. You just call someone who you know does this. So you just call them and they bring the stuff to you. So yeah.
So which flavor are you making at the moment?
This one it's just plain.
General?
It's general. There's nothing special with it. It's much quicker to purchase. It's much easier to get it with anyone out there. It's much easier to get it at your home. You just call someone and they drop it in your place. I'd say there are many people trading this drug right now, yes. High school students want it, college students want it, even people who are working.
These materials are good enough to buy you a car or bad enough to earn you a jail sentence up to over 20 years. As time goes by, I realized that Nairobi drug lords also trade in other Western-made drugs like speed and meth and even anabolic steroids, that is a familiar name for synthetic variants for male sex hormone. This is where all the money starts, but it does not end here. It's a middle-class drug business. I'm in the final legs of this production, but until we understand the role of Nairobi City in drug trafficking in Africa, this piece is incomplete. Far away from the city, we are on a hunt. The hope is we will finally meet a first-class drug trafficker. We've already made contacts. With the blessings of the drug lords, we have got an access path to understand drug trafficking techniques right from the inside.
And using Nairobi and using mules, disposable mules, these are people who, desperate people who need fast money, and they do not know who they are being used by, and they're used as mules in this business.
It simply tells me that there is a chain or a process that this thing begins from, where it ends. How big is this chain, and what is the real structure of this chain of drug trafficking?
Yeah, definitely. There's a big chain. we're talking about from the source. These are the first class. These are the top people who own big companies, and it's structured in the form of a company. There's the CEO, there's the directors, and then there are their assistants, and then of course there's the workforce that most of them do not know they're even in a company. They think they're working alone, they're making money on their own, but they're also part of a chain, in that when the drugs come from the source, whether it's heroin or cocaine or bangi, when it comes from the source, the destination and how it reaches the destination is a planned affair. This first class provide protection for their generals and their lieutenants and people below them. Even after big shipments are arrested or they are discovered, you don't hear of arrest because they simply disappear. And this is also part of the security apparatus. This is where it comes in, and they are bribed, and there's too much corruption in the security apparatus in Kenya. Not just Nairobi, but Kenya is a transit point in that in the cross-Atlantic trade from the South Americas to the final destination, which is mostly Europe. So Kenya, as the port of Mombasa, is the entry point of these drugs.
So what happens at the port of Mombasa? Say that this is an entry point.
Yeah.
What exactly happens there?
Okay.
For these drugs, they've been brought. How is the process carried out? The clandestine approach that is given to them.
So basically, a ship comes from, let's say, its first port of dispatch. It comes with a full, it's packed full of containers of ordinary stuff, toys, computers, anything. But one of the containers is filled with these drugs, and it is marked. And a person responsible, a person from the ports department, who knows in advance that such and such a container is coming and is meant to be to infiltrate the port without detection. Drugs come through the port of Dar es Salaam and make their way to Nairobi, come from Mombasa and make their way. They come from different points of entry, including Somalia and this.
Why Nairobi specifically?
Nairobi is because of the facilities, and this is where the JKIA comes in, because they use it mostly as a transit point, either to bring in drugs or to export it to the European market. JKIA is a world-class airport, as you know, but some security features are not up to par, up to international standards when it comes to curbing the drug trafficking menace, in that there's some loopholes which these guys take advantage of. And of course, Nairobi as the epicenter of the drug trafficking trade in East and Central Africa, which is a very important part of the network between the Americas, the South American source, and the European market. Nairobi is a very important hub, as was Lagos a few years ago, but now the money is now moving into Kenya. This is why you're seeing many Nigerians and many Congolese who are involved in this drug trade in Nairobi. You must also be very careful who you talk about, who you tell that you're investigating this story, because nobody wants, because the kinds of names that are involved in this business, nobody would like to name them and appear on camera naming them.
This man is ruthless. But even with the heavy threats, I have to stay calm and prove that I can handle myself in front of him.
So when it comes to the second class, they also buy protection, and they use technology to communicate. This is encrypted messages which cannot be tracked by the government. We're talking about private servers that they communicate amongst themselves. We saw the second class, there's this website in the dark part of the internet called the Silk Road, where you can buy drugs and guns and fake passports. It was closed the other day by the American government. So this is part of the chain of communication.
After following drug trail from palatial homes to the streets, it's now clearer that drug menace is the dirty business that consumes the consumers more than what they take in their bodies. Back at U-Turn for Christ Rehabilitation Center, integration therapy is going on. Their songs are a solemn prayer and a humble appeal to anyone listening.
Hallelujah, Hallelujah day by day.
Hallelujah day by day.
The Lion of
So I think it's one thing to be able to be clean from drugs and alcohol. It is an entirely different thing to be able to say that you've left this place and you're God-fearing, you love God.
Maybe, and just maybe. Now, my encounter with these people has not only confirmed the fundamental decency in them. In one way, it has also reminded me that at the core of their experiences are a set of ideas that continue to stir their conscience. These are common values that bind them together despite their differences, and a running thread of hope that makes sanity experimentable and probable in their lives as they struggle to leave drug addiction and drug trafficking in this country. And for anyone who is using drugs, probably this should be your most important lesson and your last lesson to learn to leave drugs. My name is Obar Mark.